My name is Dr. Stephen Jones. As an organizational psychologist and executive coach, I love to study what allows people to bring out the best in themselves and others. So join me as I welcome top leaders to uncover the future of leadership. Welcome to the LeaderSHYFT Secret Podcast, where top leaders share their insights earned, wisdom gained, and transformational moments that have defined and redefined their leadership. I'm your host, Dr. Stephen Jones, and today's guest is an amazing leader, a community developer, and a global influencer. Karl Gorman, founder and CEO of GLH Capital, LLC, a real estate investment company valued at $40 million. Karl was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. Karl has 20 years in corporate America, working with the largest 3 financial institutions in the world: MetLife, Sun Life, and Voya Financial. In 2020, when Karl and his wife heard about the idea that African Americans between the ages of 18 to 25 were more in jail than in college, they decided to act on this. And they created together Black Future Foundation. Now they have 13 kids in universities across the country. Karl is also the co-owner of a Dubai-based company, Sand and Stone, that just landed a huge contract in the Dubai malls. Yeah, you heard it, the Dubai malls. Karl doesn't stop there. His leadership continues, y'all. He's also a dedicated family man, where he is the father of 3 kids with his powerful wife, Karl Gorman. Welcome to the LeaderSHYFT Secret Podcast.
Wow,
Karl.
that sounded like a lot of stuff.
What? We are really, really excited to have you today, Karl.
Yeah,
excited
to be here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Excited about mining for those secrets that really drive who you are as a leader. So let's start off by just tell us a little bit about your passion for leadership and impact.
Yeah, so the passion started really, as you mentioned, working in corporate America for 20 years. You know, you're working for someone else. You're basically bringing their dreams to life. And so I started, GLH as a side project. My wife told me that we were having our second and our third kid at the same time. So twins, right? And I said, well, you know what I'll do is I'll do a little, something on the side. And really, we started house flipping with GLH, and 1 became 2, became 5, became 10. And what we did it in 10 duplexes in a C neighborhood. And essentially, we left the people in there, so we didn't increase rents. We left them in there, fixed up the outside, fixed up the inside, put them in an extended stay when we fixed up the inside. And we were walking through the neighborhood, just kind of taking, videos and pictures of it. And a lady comes off her porch and she says, "Are you GLH?" And I said, "Yeah." And she says, "Are you Karl?" And I said, "Yeah." And she says, "Thank you for changing the community." And I thought at that point that we were just, making money and we were just, doing a couple projects. But essentially we were changing that community, and that community went on to now it was a food desert before, and now has access to fresh fruits and vegetables with the local grocery store moving in. They got a community center that's there. The residents of the community have taken over the park again. So it used to be a park that was, run down by prostitutions, gangsters, drugs, all that. They called the police on them, but they kept calling the police, and they got that wiped out. And now their kids have some place to go and be. And so, the impact that I think that I can make is why not do that all over the country?
Yeah, very good.
Yeah,
that's phenomenal, man.
Yeah.
So say some more about that in terms of what drives you. What's more about what's your why? Because I definitely hear the developing the community and empowering people where they live, right?
Yeah.
Is one of those drivers.
Yeah.
What else would you say?
Yeah. So I think it's a couple things, right? So I think it's the first thing is having pride of living in the community, right? So having real pride in it. If I can do that in that community, I can do that everywhere. The other thing too is if you look at, the statistical data, there is a wealth gap that exists in the country. And I think the first thing you have to think about, if you're not financially literate or you don't have classes that you can go to, or you're struggling with your finances, the very first thing that I would do and instruct everybody to do is own their own home. Right. So what we've done is we've been able, like you mentioned, we've been able to work with the cities, work with the municipalities, work with the councilmen, come up with a way that we can stack the deck where we've got them bringing the land to the table, them bringing tax credits to the table. So that meaning once we get done with the project, they're giving us a 20% tax credit towards our build costs. And then we're exiting with a 15-year tax abatement, which means that whenever we sell the homes or if we decide to keep them, we don't have to pay property taxes on them for 15 years. So when you look at it from a home ownership perspective, and you've got the single mom who has 2 or 3 kids and she wants a home that she can be able to raise her kids in, we have now given her the ability to do that. So you talk about what drives me, that's it, man. I mean, getting up every day and you have stories like that where we're putting people who who deserve to be in a home that maybe never thought that they could be in a home. The other thing that we've done too is, the biggest thing about getting in home ownership is the down payment. Most people can't afford, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 in down payment. And so what we've done is we essentially have reached out to a local lender there. We have agreed to pay or to sell the homes at below market value so that the lender can give the new homeowner 100% financing. It literally has changed the world or will change the world. Definitely changing that community, but will change the world if we can get people in homes that don't have to have a down payment, can now start with some equity in their home, and over time, 5, 10, 15 years, build that equity by just paying their mortgage.
Yeah. So it's powerful. As I'm listening to you, I'm thinking solutions-based action.
Yes.
Right? That as a leader, you see the problem.
Yes.
You look for solutions and bring partners together in order to help people take care of themselves, their family, and their community.
Absolutely.
Why?
Yeah, I think if you think about it outside of the box, right? So like I'm always about creative thinking.
Yes.
Right? The traditional way is to have you or someone in the community pay rent to these large corporations or these large hedge funds or these people that are these billionaires, millionaires, billionaires that exist in the world and not have their own. And if we literally have turned that all upside down.
Affordable housing is coming together, guys. We are doing it. We are at the job site of our first homes and we're here. We're, I don't want to say we're at the finish line because we're at the start line of actually building these homes. But, it took a long time to get the land. We now got the land, we got the money, the projects in place, and we've got our first 2 that are here that we're building on a lot of 30. We're building our first 2 here and the basements have already gone in. So the dream is coming.
And it's my passion. Once we saw what we could do in the span that we could do it in, I said, let's just do this all over the country. And essentially I've got a mentor that said, now it's your responsibility. You now know the secret. It's your responsibility to be successful with it. And so we set up a fund. We set to raise, $1 million. We ended up raising 15 million.
Wait a minute. You said the goal was $1 million. I think that's called surpassing the goal at 15 million. That is brilliant, man.
Yeah. And we did that really on, friends and friends and friends of friends. And we hadn't really advertised our fund. You can't really advertise for a fund, but we did no advertising and we raised that amount of capital. And now we're going to do it even more. Now we're winning more contracts. We're running more awards that we're putting people in homes, just like we described. Now we're going to do it all over the country. And the more money that we raise, the more places that we can affect. And I feel like if we can have people that look like me owning their own homes, being able to have pride of ownership in that community, it's going to change the world. It's going to change the community. So that's the goal of mine. That's the goal of GLH. And I've got a lot of talented and smart people around me that make me look good.
So talk about that a little bit more, because I'm getting the sense that your leadership in action is about bringing people together to achieve a goal, right?
Yes.
How do you surround yourself with folks from that leadership mindset?
Yeah. So it's there's a book called Who Not How.
Okay.
And it really talks about, the first thing that you think about when you have a problem is, how do I figure this out? I always think about is, who can help me figure this out? I really have always felt, and honestly speaking, I've always felt like I was a C student at best. I had trouble reading when I was in grade school. And I always thought that there was someone out there, no matter what it was, that knew more than I did. So I've surrounded myself with driven people who know what they're doing, and they're the best in the world at that particular task. Then I inquire them to come work with me and come work for me or whatever it is, so that we can collaborate and grow this. Because I take my ego out of it. And I look for the person who is the best in the world at what they're doing, and have them come collaborate with our team.
Yeah. Okay. We just got a leadership secret, y'all.
Yeah.
Who, not how.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And to your point, you have to be able to have, I'm going to call it a healthy ego.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Versus take the ego out.
Yes.
Right? That says to have a healthy ego with a clear goal.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to add a little sauce of humility.
I love it.
Into that, right?
Yeah.
In order to then bring these people together to recognize talent.
Yeah.
Right? And then to mobilize that into action.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think if you look at any fallen business or any fallen country, any fallen man, it's ego.
Yeah.
Right? Ego is the enemy. There's a book title called Ego is the Enemy. I encourage everybody to read that. If you remove your ego from most situations, you're looking at really what matters there. And I don't sit around, our board table or in meetings with my team and claim to know everything there is to know about sales, marketing, business, leadership. We've got a guy that's on our team that spent 25 years in the White House. What do I know about the White House? What do I know about politicians? But he knows everything, right? So again, going to him and humbly saying, "Hey, do you mind coming to our team? Here's what we're thinking about doing. Can you help us get into some of these rooms and some of these meetings?" And really, he's been the one that has allowed us to win the deals that we've won, because we're talking directly to mayors of cities. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
But I'm also hearing a clear focus on what the need is, right? And the gap, if you will.
Yeah.
And then looking to find that person who can fill that gap.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And that then allows you to move in ways that I'm going to say is beyond your individual capacity.
100%.
But it's not beyond the team's collective capacity.
You hit it right on the head. That's exactly it, right? I mean, we can do a lot more together than we can individually.
Yeah.
And I know what my secret power is, right? But I know, and I also know what my secret power is not.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So I don't spend any time doing the things that I'm not good at, right?
Brilliant.
You see how long it took me to give you the pictures. I'm not good at that. But what I can do is sit here and have a conversation about what the vision of the company is going to be, and how I believe that we can basically change the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
So right next to who, not how,
Yeah.
is what and what not. Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
That's
and,
awesome.
and Dr. Jones, I think, when you're in school,
Yeah.
when you're in, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, the teacher tells you you're not good at math, right? So what do? They focus on math with you, right? Like, okay, now you need more time with math. You need more exposure with math. You need to now do math in every hour of every day. And it's like, well, isn't that backwards, right? If you're good at reading and comprehension, why wouldn't you spend more time doing that?
Yeah.
So again, I feel like as I got to the working world and I just kind of, humbly, reviewed all these, I was selling corporate benefits. So I had an opportunity to see CFOs, CEOs, HR directors, a lot of executives, brokers, consultants, all of that. And I just observed the way that they moved. And most of them, the ones that were the top of the top, leaned into what they were good at and leaned back from what they wasn't. Right? Focus on what you're good at and don't spend any time doing what you're not good at. So
good. Yeah. It reminds me of, we did work with Toyota as a client for about 30 years. And one of the things that they would talk about is leading with your strengths. Right. And the idea of investing in your strengths, not giving up on your weaknesses, but not focusing your time on your weaknesses, finding people, right, whose strength is your weakness, which is part of what I hear you saying as a part of your leadership.
How long would it take me to build a website? Probably 6 years. How long does it take my marketing person to build a website? Probably 6 hours. Right. So I've literally shrunk time. Now I've got a great website. Now it looks good and everything's great. And I haven't had to spend 6 years doing it.
That's good.
And I do. And again, I apply that same methodology to all areas of my life that I'm just not good at. Hire somebody to do those things.
That's awesome. So talk a little bit about, because transforming also is kind of what's coming out for me as part of, you heard the statistic about college versus prison. And what I'm appreciating is you are leadership in action. Right. Like, forget the talk. Right.
Execution.
How do we execute? Right. So talk a little bit about kind of what moved you and your wife to move to action on that.
So I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, and there was a number of times where I had interactions with the police, rightfully so or not, right? And there was one instance when I was a sophomore in high school, and I was walking down the street with 4 of my fraternity brothers, and we were on another campus. We were on campus of Michigan State University, and loved Michigan State, but the police pulled us over as we were walking. And essentially harassed us for a good amount of time. We gave them our IDs and everything else, and we sat on the curb for an hour. And as the IDs checked out and everything was good, we then, got up and left or started to leave. And then my fraternity brother says, well, why were you holding us in the first place? They like within seconds slammed us on the ground, pointed guns to our head and said, you're going to die today. Wow. And when I think back on that day, I think about, if there was an itch and the officer did pull the trigger and shoot me, I would be dead. I think about George Floyd and the position that he was in, because that was a very similar position. Now, here I am running a company and in corporate America and all doing all these great things. And I look the same as George Floyd, and he's now dead.
That's right.
And so, my wife and I, we looked at each other and said, what are we going to do? I think, we can walk and protest and we can do all of those things. Yeah, but is that going to make a difference? Right? And is it going to make a difference long term? Right? So think with the end in mind. We said, what can we do now that can make a difference that will last the lifetime of people? And so we decided, and then, the statistic that you read, I mean, there's more in that age bracket, there's more African-American men in jail than there are in college. And so we decided, why don't we start a college fund? We had enough at the time. And so we said, let's personally put our resources together and start finding kids that were on the cusp. And what I mean by that is not everybody is designed to go to college. Not everybody qualifies to go to college, but those students that are right there that should go to college, that can make it through college, that have the grades, that have the will to do it. Those are the kids that we want to find. And so we started a company, an or nonprofit, behind it. We got some board members. We started interviewing some kids, and now, call it 5 years later, we got 13 kids that are in 4-year colleges all across the country, really making a difference.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
It just strikes me as very sad when we think about mental health and so much focus on mental health and understanding the importance.
Yeah.
And yet, to me, there's not enough conversations around the potential impact on the mental health of the 4 of you.
Yeah, right.
Who had 100%. A gun pointed to your head that could have impacted even your ability to go to college, think about college, right, as a result of having that experience, right?
Absolutely.
And so, unfortunately, that happens and is part of the reality of life for way too many people, right? And way too many people who look like me and you.
Yep, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And so, again, I'm appreciating the leadership through action, right? To say whether it was our family's about to expand, or whether it's the other end of that going, my life is about to end. That you took both of those situations and many others and said, what do I do about it in a sustainable, scalable way?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think to your point, it's, I think that, at that point I was going to school to be a gym teacher and a basketball coach. That was what I wanted to do.
Okay.
And at that time, when that happened, instead of saying, you know what, woe is me, and I'm just going to go curl up in the ball and smoke weed and do whatever else that kids do, of having that encounter, I took the opposite approach. I went back to school that next weekend, and I went to my counselor and I said, I thought about this over the weekend. I said, what can I do to even the playing ground? Right? How can I figure out a situation where my kids won't ever have to be in a situation like that? What I came up with is my life now, right? We were in Detroit. I now moved to we now moved to San Diego. We live in the suburbs, and we have the financial means to do what we want to do. And so what the decision that was made at that moment was, I now need to go into business, which is what the counselor said, and I need to go into sales. Sign me up. I'm going to be a sales and business marketing with an emphasis on finance. Okay. And so that's what I did. And that literally changed the trajectory of me, of my life. I could have been a basketball coach, and now I felt like to even the playing field was the economics in our societies. How do I make the most amount of money that I possibly can make? And went to work on that and talk about, I feel like I've always been on fire, but I was working 60-hour days and running circles around those people that were in the office, turning the lights off in the morning and turning them off at the end of the night. And was out of those 7 years I was at MetLife. I was rep of the year for those 7 years. So, and again, that has just always propelled me to say, okay, how can we make a difference? How can we make a difference in my life right now, having that experience, and then applying it and really going and getting it.
Wow. See, I'm passion with purpose, right? Followed by action and execution, right? That formula. But you also said you started out going, let me go ask, to get more information. Right?
Yes.
How much does that inform or instruct your leadership?
Everything.
Okay.
Right. I mean, let's be really, really, really clear. Okay. I think in this lifetime, there are people that have done what you want to do. Go find those people and copy their blueprint. Now, you don't have to do it exactly like they did, but they're successful. If they're successful doing what they've already done,
Mm-hmm.
go find their blueprint and do it. I've had a mentor for the last 23 years. He has coached me through he's 20 some years older than I am.
Mm-hmm.
He has coached me through everything that I have accomplished,
Yeah.
right? When I say to him, hey, I'm thinking about doing this.
Yes.
I'm thinking about leaving this company and going to the next. I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking about leaving Detroit and going to San Diego. I'm thinking about marrying this girl.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about having these kids. I'm thinking about starting this business.
Yeah.
He could coach me through all of those things
Nice.
because he has done them.
Yeah.
And I think mentorship, again, is a lot has to do with ego, right? People don't want to ask the questions. Hey, how are you? You're
right.
a doctor. How do I become a doctor?
Yes.
Hey, you're a real estate guy. How do I
Yes.
become in real estate? They don't want to have those questions. And I think even in our community,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's even worse.
Yeah.
We don't have the humility maybe to say, hey, I am struggling here.
Yeah.
I need help with this. Can you help me?
Yeah. Yeah.
You would be amazed and it's unbelievable how those people who have been successful want to help.
Yeah.
So it's reaching out and asking the questions and removing your ego and going into a situation and taking the information and applying the information.
Yeah.
That has allowed me to be successful because none of this is, I just figured it out.
Yeah.
I had coaches and mentors and people along the way that have instructed me.
It's so good. I think in so many places for so many people, the idea of needing help, especially I would say for men, gets interpreted as a weakness, a vulnerability, right?
Right.
Versus, to your point, a path towards success.
Exactly.
Right. And an ability to achieve what I can't achieve on my own.
Yes.
And so to your point that I love the idea of saying part of leadership gives us the opportunity and challenges us.
Yes.
Right. To not get stuck
Right.
in those, whether it's family ways, cultural ways, old ways, whatever ways.
Yes.
Right. Somebody told me once, they said, if we argue for our limitations, we get to keep them.
Right.
I love that. Right? It's like, let go.
Yeah.
And then go.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
And even when I look back at, my 20-year run in corporate America and sitting across the tables from CEOs and CFOs, even them, they would get so locked into their world and their company, they wouldn't even look outside.
Yes.
Right. So it's just like, it's amazing to me that how much information you can pick up by just asking people, other people that are in your situation or above you, how they did it.
Yeah.
Just asking those questions
will
put you in a completely different arena.
Good. Very good.
Yeah.
Has this been something that has driven little Karl as well as grown Karl? Has this been a driver throughout your journey?
Yeah. My mom was a special ed teacher.
Okay.
So we grew up going to the Special Olympics, and I grew up around people that was disabled.
Yeah.
We didn't necessarily grow up in the great part of town.
Yeah.
So being in Detroit and seeing things from there, I've just always been philanthropic. I've always felt like if I ever get to a situation where I've made it, quote unquote, that I would reach back and pull as many people as I possibly can. Awesome. And my wife feels the same way. So it's not a hard, it's not a hard sell to her. Say, hey, honey, we're going to give this much money away. And my mentor, I never forget this conversation. I was, making some pretty decent money. I'm 25 years old. And he says, now you have to give away 20% of it. And I said, what? 20%?
That's more than the 10% that many churches ask, right?
I think God is asking for 10. You said 20.
Right.
But and he says, if you're making, which at the time, I was making $400,000. So 20% of $400,000 was $80,000, which was a large amount of money for me and my thought. But he says, if you won't give 20% away of 400, you'll never get to 4 million.
Yeah.
And even that conversation of him saying 4 million was it just seems like that was just so far reach. Like that's impossible. But he planted the seed.
That's good.
Right. He planted the seed of saying you can get to 4 million.
Yeah.
And now we're here. I mean, believe it or not, we just, the evaluation that you read, we sold 10% of the company for $4 million 2 Novembers ago. So it's real.
Yes,
it's real.
Yes.
But going back to that same story. I mean, the seed was planted then, and now we're having to give away 20% of 4 million.
Yes.
Totally different feeling.
It's okay. I'm going to give y'all Karl's number a little bit later on. But I know I appreciate it because so many people, we're the LeaderSHYFT Secret, right?
Yeah.
So many people keep their financial secret.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Versus to your point, being able to say, hey, 400,000 to 4 million.
Yeah.
Right? To 43 million to 400 million.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And to be able to not be scared of those numbers.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But also it's almost like be able to touch the number when he's like, if you want to get to 4 mil, you can't do that unless you, which 4 mil, I can get to 4 mil.
I can get to 4 million.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what I'm also hearing in what you're saying is my current state does not determine my future possibility.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think there's a couple things there. So the first thing I would say is that everything that I've given away, I've gotten back tenfold. Nice. So that is, we look for opportunities to give because it comes back tenfold.
Got it.
And to being able to touch the ability to have that kind of leadership in my life at the time to say, hey, your focus is a little off here.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you got $400,000 and what are you doing with it? And there's a lot of conversations in the country clubs and in the boardrooms that we are not having on the basketball courts, right? So if you go to any country club, they're talking about depreciation, taxes, their net worth, their portfolio. When you go to the ballpark, they're talking about what they just purchased. And so I think I've been very vocal, and I've gotten a little backlash on this, but I've been very vocal of being able to share financial information. I think you will only learn if you understand.
That's right.
So I'm not going to hold back and say to my son, hey, make good money. No, I'm going to tell you what good money is. I'm going to tell you how much money I've made. Right. I'm going to tell you how much we're trying to get to.
That's right.
And I think putting a label on it, which is something we don't like to do, it only holds you back.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good. Because in what you're saying, many people think money shouldn't be the target. And I'm hearing you say money was a clear target to be able to make an impact, right, on the community, right, to adjust and change, right, some unfortunate situations, some horrific situations, right, that shouldn't have to happen to 4 college students having a gun be put to their head, right? And so the idea of making money the target to get out of the way.
Yes. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. And I think I've lived 2 lives, right? So like the first 20 years have been a focus on money, how to drive money, how to make as much money as I possibly can. And I don't have any hangups about saying that. The next phase of life, and as we were growing that, we were giving, our 20%. But the next phase of life is now, how do we make an impact? Right. So I've made my money. Now I need to make an impact. Now I need to have a legacy. Now I need to make sure that GLH, which is Grant, Laurel, and Halley, are left with a company that is generating capital and making impacts on these communities across the world.
Very good. That's your cheering, right?
Yeah, that's the kids.
That is awesome. Yeah. But I also heard you look at investment versus expense. Right? In some different ways. Talk a little bit about, as a leader, how do you work on investing in others?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the first thing that I would say there is the investment in your mindset, and it's a dollar amount, right? So like, just sitting and listening to podcasts is a start, but you need to go to Tony Robbins. You need to go to Landmark. You need to go to some of these other seminars that cost money for you to go there. These masterminds that put you in a room with similar people so that you can level up your mind. Because when you're in a situation, or you're starting a business, or you're working in corporate America, the first thing that you have to get right is who you are. And you got to be in love with yourself.
That's right.
And you got to have the mindset of Invictus, right? Being able to look at, failure and success just the same.
That's right.
Right. And so, when we were pledging back in the day, we were memorizing these poems. We didn't know that was actually real life.
That's right. My head is bloody, but unbowed. Full transparency, Karl and I are both members of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. And so that's what you see happening right now. Absolutely.
But it's the truth. Yes. I mean, and so I would say anybody that's listening to this and thinking about leveling up, or thinking about leadership, and thinking about leading an organization, you got to get your mind right first, right? You got to be in a situation where you are capable of leading. No one's going to follow you if you're not capable of leading. So invest money, invest time, invest energy in your mental capacity. And it's just like any other muscles. I go to the gym once a day, and I also meditate once a day. The meditation's for the mind, getting me to think of myself in abundance, and thinking about the things that I want to come to my life, and setting myself, removing the shackles that sometimes I might at the end of the day put myself in.
Come on.
Getting your mind to be able to say anything's possible. Now I'm physically strong, and I think anything's possible. I can run through that wall.
That's right. Mind, body, spirit.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
But again, I'm hearing you around invest in self to invest in others.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I think many people, again, I think about the obstacles. Many people think about that as being selfish versus I have to be strong to be selfless. Right? And have a healthy sense of self. Right? 100%. So that I can give to others and I can be a leader they want to follow.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, if you're pouring from an empty glass, you're not going to be able to pour anything.
Come on.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, so you got to fill your glass up first in order to be able to give.
That's right.
And if it seems selfish, then it is, right? I mean, it is a little bit, right? You have to sometimes be a little selfish, take a little time for yourself, meditate, do the things that will allow you to be fully able and capable of leading. And then you can pour to the others. It's just like, when you're flying in the plane and they say put your oxygen mask on first. I mean, it's the same philosophy that I do. I put my mask on first so that I can make sure that my wife, my kids, my business is successful.
That's excellent. But you didn't stop at the country.
No.
You have gone global. I'm sorry, are global. Right? Talk a little bit about, and I'm going to name it limitless leadership.
Yeah, love it.
Talk about it.
Yeah, so I think, I was in Dubai a couple times, and I was talking with a couple, a man and woman married, and they were talking about the challenges that they have in their business. And, again, having seen, I don't even know the number, 3,000 businesses and companies, I got a pretty good idea of like, I can see it and I can make a couple changes and it could be successful.
Very good.
And so they approached me after I gave them a couple tidbits. Hey, have you ever thought about going into the mall? You guys are selling it direct to consumer. Have you ever thought about going direct to the malls? Have you ever thought about this? Have you ever thought about doing this? Mindset for the CEO. All of those things. And then they approached me and said, would you want to be a partner on this? And at the time, we were they were not making much money. It was a you know, I don't even know if it was a business at that point. Okay. And now, you know, we're set to do $3 to $5 million in revenue.
Very good.
We're in 3 Dubai malls. We just got a large contract that just ordered a lot of inventory from us. So, you know, we'll continue to grow that business. And I think just in, you know, thinking about leadership in business, as I can identify a really good leader and then let them lead. Yes. Right. So a number of times people are finding good people, the who's, and then telling them what to do. You know, find the who's and let them do what they do best. Yes. And so there's a number of companies that I've invested in that I'm a co-owner of, and I let the leaders do the leading. Very good. I come with the capital, or I come with a couple insights of things that I think could be successful. But again, it doesn't make a difference if it's a company or if it's a job site, right? I mean, on the job site, I say, hey guys, this is what we're trying to do. We're going to build this house. We're going to do these things. We're going to put these things in order. Build. And then let them do their thing.
So good. Now the secret for y'all, leaders let leaders lead. Right.
Exactly.
Like, which really kind of puts a question around control. Right. And so many leaders think leading equals control versus leaders. And I want to connect a couple of dots. Here. You said, be clear around your goal. Find the right talent. Right. Be clear about what you need them to lead around and then let them lead.
Exactly. Yes.
Right.
Yes. You hit it on the head. Absolutely. Absolutely. And trust the process. Yeah.
I also heard you say, and be aware of the conversations you're having. And where you're having them.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
Because the conversations you're having kind of is time. Right?
Right.
But also kind of directs even what contributions are going to be happening from the other people in that conversation. Does that make sense? There's a lot of words. Right? But I think it's so powerful in what you're saying, right? To make sure that our viewers don't miss you know, some of these key pieces that you're dropping because they're gems.
And I think there's a lot to be said about, you know, control, a lot to be said about, you know, your vision. And some of the best things that have happened to me in my lifetime has been, you know, me saying, here's what what do you think? Let me be the last to speak. When we go on our company retreats, I go around the table and have them tell me what they think. And then I can weigh in about what I think. But, and again, finding the right people, having them lead and having them understand what they're doing. They know more about it than I do. Why would I come to the table and tell them what to do? And so again, removing your ego from the situation, allowing leaders to lead, and let them shine.
That's so good. Right? Again, another secret uncovered. Leaders listen. And leaders lead with listening. Right?
Absolutely.
You also named and I'm gonna call it healthy ego versus removing the ego.
Right. We said that for earlier. Right. Healthy ego.
Because that healthy ego says I have a role.
Right.
I'm just not the role.
Exactly.
Right? I'm not all roles.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Having your own self-worth and understanding it. You can then have somebody else shine. You know, we're in talks with a well-known basketball player, and you know, in his camp, he said, "Hey, you know, the deal's not even close to being done, but he says, hey, if I come with X amount of dollars, can we name it after me?" And I said, absolutely. You know, there's no ego. We can name it whatever you want to name it. He grew up in that neighborhood. He is now a really successful athlete. Yes, name it whatever you want to name it. And again, a healthy self-worth and a healthy ego allows me to say, you do whatever you need to do.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Talk a little bit about setbacks and failures.
Oh man, how much time we got?
Right on.
I mean, you name it, we've done it. In terms of failing, right? And I always say that success is right on the other side of failure.
Right on.
And you got to fail forward, and you got to fail fast.
Yeah.
I like to make decisions really, really fast.
Okay.
Fail. And then make 3 more decisions to correct that decision that I
Got
made.
it.
I don't spend a ton of time doing a lot of sitting back and observing and trying to figure it out and not moving forward. I'm all about implementation, right? So if we don't know what we're doing on this particular scenario, we're going to find someone that does, and then we're going to try it.
Yeah.
And if it fails, we're going to adjust.
Yeah.
I learned that from my other mentor. He says, try it fast, adjust quicker. Right.
Nice.
So, and that's been our philosophy.
That's
If something doesn't work the way that we think it should work, we're just going to adjust and move forward. But
That's
there's been a lot of failures. In my lifetime, there's been a lot of failures with GLH. We have screwed up a lot of different things. But again, on the other side of that failure was success, and we've been able to, kind of rebound from those those failures.
Very good.
Yeah.
Try it fast, learn, adjust quicker.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And quickly.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
excellent. That's excellent.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. So what advice, when you think about the leaders who will be watching this podcast, right? What advice, what key takeaways would you want them to get from watching this podcast?
Yeah. So I think the first takeaway is having a good mindset on who you are and what you're trying to accomplish.
Okay.
Removing the shackles that your parents have put on your brain or your mind about what you can accomplish, what you cannot accomplish. All of those are stories that you've told yourself, and none of those are true.
Yeah.
So removing that from so your mindset is the first one. Lean into a healthy ego, meaning again, going and asking for help is not a weakness; it's actually a strength. Listening more than you speak. Being able to know what you're the best in the world at, and identifying other people that are the best in the world at things, and getting a collaborative effort for all of the people that are around you that you've selected to run the race with you. There's no better feeling than having people that you love and trust that are around you that are all successful.
Very good. Very good. Excellent. That is phenomenal. And I want to add part of one of my takeaways is I heard you reference a mentor and a coach, right? And somebody who helps you develop,
absolutely,
right, on an ongoing basis at every level of success, right? That investment continues to help you grow.
Absolutely.
That's phenomenal.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been an amazing episode of the LeaderSHYFT Podcast. I'm so glad that you have stayed with us as we have had this amazing, power-packed conversation for me. This brother's bad, y'all. I'm just saying, right? And I hope that you have gotten some key takeaways, some key nuggets as we work together to kind of uncover some of those secrets. If you found this podcast to be helpful and beneficial to you, go ahead on and like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel for the LeaderSHYFT Podcast. And we'll look forward to continuing to bring you awesome episodes. Thank you very much for your time.